I just wanted to, first of all, thank all of you for the opportunity that I've had to serve here. It's meant a lot to me. Back in 2017, the department underwent an organizational assessment, and there were 27 recommendations that came, out of that organizational assessment. One of the things I would just like to remind you, and I don't think I should have to, is you have good employees. They are great people in the department, and we have a lot of talent, we have a lot of energy, we have a lot of vision. And we need to, I think a big issue is working on trust, accountability, and teamwork. So there were some major organizational areas that the assessment gave us, and one of them was internal communications. One of the first recommendations was repairing working relationships within the department. There are currently and in the near future, there's going to be some command staff changeover, and it's going to allow the new chief to come in and have a new team to lead the department with. And we are in the process, and the new chief and I have been working together. We have set goals and objectives for this year for our officers and for the patrol staff. And so I think the big issue is that as moving forward, that the new chief, just holds the command staff accountable and the officers accountable, and that they keep moving forward with what we've done. The new chief and his new command staff, should be able to establish regular meetings and, meet on the work and the accomplishments of the agency. The organizational assessment also recommended to develop a communications network. One of the things that we've been doing within the department is having multiple meetings, with the patrol sergeants, with different components of the agency. I've met a couple of times with the dispatchers who expressed during the organizational assessment a feeling of being the odd man out, if you will, or the stepchild in the organization. So we've been trying to strengthen that relationship. I've met with just the shift supervisors, and so I know that the new chief will continue that process as well. This is one of the recommendations was to develop a tracking system for ongoing projects. That item needs work. I just haven't had a chance to really get a good handle on it. Another recommendation was change the physical layout of the command officer's workspace. And I would make an observation about the entire police facility side, and that's that it's not set up to work team, if you will. It gets you siloed pretty quickly. And I thought off and on about changing where the chief's office is and making some other changes, and I've left that for the new chief. I think that is something that he will need to work on. But you do need to know that the building is not conducive. The way that the offices are laid out and that kind of thing is just not conducive to teamwork. That doesn't mean you can't achieve teamwork. It just means you're going to have to work a whole lot harder. And you need to, it's one of those where a lot of people need to, manage by walking around. So you're going to need to manage team by walking around and being willing to get up from your desk and not make a phone call and not email, but do face-to-face. Accountability was the second item, group item that the assessor identified. And one of the recommendations was to develop agency and individual work plans and objectives on an annual basis. We've started that. We have set goals and objectives, and again, Chief Morgan gave me some of his input, and we put together a set of goals and objectives certainly for the patrol force for this coming year. One of the things that all the officers are now mandated to do is get out of their cruiser for at least 2 hours during a shift and walk neighborhoods, walk businesses. I've heard back that a couple of our businesses say it's the first time they've had an officer stop in. I recently had one of the sergeants tell me that they found out about a crime that had occurred that had never been reported to us. And so I think that this, this foot patrol is really going to get us a lot back in terms of building partnerships with the community. And it's one of our objectives for this coming year. So I think that we're going to get a lot of buy-in. I will say that setting goals and objectives is something that generally you try and do with the people you're working with and supervising. Because of time constraints, we pretty much imposed goals and objectives on the patrol force and the department. And I hope that in the coming year, the chief will be able to develop a process where he can get input and buy-in from the officers and the staff and the supervisors. So I think that that'll be a good process. Another thing was to develop and implement a performance evaluation system. The fact that we've set goals will now allow, the fact that we've set goals and we've made changes in the way our patrol force is structured. Our officers now report to one supervisor, and they work all the time with that one supervisor. So the one supervisor will be able to have a really good ability to evaluate the people that they're working with at the end of the year. So that has been set into motion. Pursuant to employee training on policies, enforce them. This is going to be a critical piece going into the future. I have been issuing policies. I've been working with the officers. Some of it is repetitious for them, but there has been a lot of organizational change that's been imposed on this agency in the last 4 months. I would say that sometimes the amount of organizational change that we've imposed in the last 4 months might take 2 or 3 years. So some folks' heads are reeling, and we need to be sensitive to that. But we need to enforce the policies and hold people accountable. And again, with the current restructuring of the agency, the way we've done it, we will be able to do that much better. People are very clear about what their roles are and their responsibilities. And I would like to say that another issue is that, again, a major change that needs to take place and that we've been working on within the agency is what I mean, this is very highfalutin language, a collaborative culture, but a culture that's based on teamwork and respect. And not, if I make an observation, am I going to get dinged for it? So we're really trying to work on that. And I've faced that over and over when I've identified a problem. The first reaction is, are we going to get disciplined or are we going to get dinged? And the answer is no. We're going to draw a line in the sand. And now we've identified this problem. We've rectified it. We have a new policy and procedure in place. From here on out, you have to follow it. So we're working on that. Continuing with accountability, the whole concept of clarifying and codifying the responsibilities, especially with the command officers. Again, with the restructuring of the police department, we have very set job descriptions for the first sergeants, and they know exactly, the people who have applied for those jobs know exactly what they're going to have to do. We have aligned work schedules with the commanders and supervisors. And again, starting on January 8th, we made this major change for the agency. The officers are working in 4 teams, and they work the same schedule all the time. And so they know who they're responsible to and for, and they know today what their work schedule is for the rest of the year, which is not something that they'd had like last year. I mean, I actually had somebody tell me that there was a point where they weren't even sure next week what they were going to be working. So with the current schedule, we're hoping that that will, create a lot of, again, accountability and oversight. And finally, there was a recommendation to establish and promote processes that recognize and reward outstanding performance. I am hoping that with, again, the accountability of the new sergeants, we'll start to recognize their officers' good work, and we will put an annual awards process in place. It will be something that the new chief needs to really encourage and work on. Staffing and resource allocation. There was the recommendation to consider a schedule change for the sergeant and patrol officers, and again, that's what we did. We made this change to their schedule, and I would recommend that, and there's a place, the very next one is evaluate the new work periods and overtime regulations. And I would say that in July and December of 2018, the agency and the finance department need to take a look at the budget, overtime, that kind of thing, and start making some assessment as to whether or not the new schedule is bringing about some of the changes financially that we hoped it would. Increase operational staffing and oversight by implementing flexible work schedules for the command staff, and I have done some of this. The new chief will need to continue to address it. Conduct a comprehensive review of the department's communications function. I will tell you, this is something that is going to need the immediate attention of the new chief. We've got major changes coming down the road, and you know some of them because you've been approving them, and they've been coming at us left and right. The Harris radio system, the CAD changeover. I opened up an email today. There's something called New Generation 911 that Mr. Tyree and I will be going to a meeting on February 15th, and the new chief is coming on February 19th. I am sending him information and sharing it with him, but I am concerned about the amount of communication technology change that the agency and the city is facing in the next 6 months to 2 years. Examine whether a second investigator position is needed. After 4 months, I do not recommend that. We are making, again, some policy changes that make sure that the patrol force is taking some of the less serious investigations and doing those, and leaving the most serious cases for the detective. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future you may not need another detective. It's just you do not need it now. And then evaluate the feasibility of creating an auxiliary officer unit. That's a future endeavor. I just didn't have time. I feel bad about that. I don't know why, I just do. Conduct a review of high liability policies with recurring review every 24 months, and conduct a review of all policies within 1 year. We are taking a real major swipe at that. I have written policy and have been trying to go over policy. And I still believe that the agency could become accredited through Virginia's law enforcement accreditation program by the fall of 2019. And we've made a lot of progress, but the process needs to continue somehow. So that's going to be a challenge. Reorganize the policies to enhance focus on high liability policies. That's in the process. I'm working on it. Use of force, high-speed pursuit, those are major issues for law enforcement, and we've been working on them. Create a definitive and enforceable sick leave policy. We were plagued with a lot of sick leave abuse. We are trying slowly to bring that under control, and we've had some success. And I would like to wait again. I think that that's part of what needs to happen in June and December of this year, with the finance department, is looking at the sick leave use and stay on top of it. But right now, our sick leave usage is down. Policies and procedures pursuant to employee training on policies, enforce them. Uniform enforcement and holding people accountable is key. And that'll be up to the new chief and the command staff to make sure that that continues to happen. Conduct an immediate audit of evidence and property. I will tell you that this was something that we did the first week I was here. You probably have one of the most pristine organized professional property and evidence rooms anywhere in Virginia, maybe the East Coast. And I've been in a lot of property and evidence rooms because of my work as an assessor. So we've got it under control. It's a very doable process as long as it's being operated by accreditation standards, and as long as they maintain and hold themselves accountable, you don't have to worry about that. Training and career development. These are all things that really the new chief is going to have to work on. A training program, develop and implement a career progression system, and develop and adhere to a defined promotional process, although the last one is something that we are currently working on as well. Equipment. Develop and implement an equipment and supplies replacement protocol and update the vehicle fleet. I can talk about this during the budget. I have identified some weaknesses in prior budget requests, and we need to discuss that because we haven't budgeted for what we truly need, and you need to hear that. And then for the next, these are definitely for the next chief things again that I just didn't get a chance. Evaluate the new work periods and overtime, conduct a comprehensive view of the department's communications function, develop the comprehensive training program, develop and implement a career progression system, and develop and adhere to a defined promotion process. We have a great department. You really do. Really good people. And they've undergone I'm going to say this again, a tremendous culture shift over the last 4 months. Please respect them. I am trying, I've been trying to break down some silos. I've been trying to break down some walls and some barriers and unlock a couple of doors and show them that we all get a lot more done. Our first goal is for all of us is serving our citizens, and we get a lot more done when we're on a team. And it's not just us within the police department, but we have to be a team with Public Works and Parks and Rec and the rest of the communications, this rescue squad, the fire department, the water people. We need to work together as a team. So they're hearing that, and I fully expect that it will continue. So do you have any questions?
Do you think the issues with the physical layout of the police department, you think that can be addressed to help? You said there were issues with the way it was laid out.
Right.
Do you think that can be addressed without huge expense? I know you talk about metaphysically tearing down walls, but you're not looking at tearing down walls.
No.
Realistically.
No, I think, for example, just even making the patrol force walk upstairs and put more of the patrol, like the patrol sergeants having to come up and doing roll call in the training room. And I mean, for example, for the chief to have somebody come and meet with them, the chief has to go downstairs, then bring somebody back upstairs to the chief's office. If you have more than 1 or 2 people, there's not enough room in the chief's office. So where do we meet citizens? There's no place really outside of the vestibule right now, or the first sergeant's office, for a citizen to come and make a complaint or talk to somebody. Unless, again, if the detective is going to talk to them, then they bring them upstairs, and there's not really room in the detective's office to interview them. So he takes them into the training room. And I'm glad to give you a tour before I leave and show you some of the challenges. But I think that there are ways to overcome that without reconstruction and tearing down walls. But people have to be challenged and be willing to change. And change is always difficult for people.